This monument here at Clonbonagh was erected in 1971, 50 years after the events that took place at the Vaughan household, where Captain John Vaughan and Lieutenant Ned Shannon were shot on that day. And here's a picture of Gerald O'Connor, who is unveiling the monument here at Clonbonagh. Okay, so we're here at the village of Clonsuck, and this is the road that leads into the Vaughan house, and this is where the Black and Tans and the RIC and the soldiers came in this road on their journey into the Vaughan household. So we're now going to go in to meet the Vaughan family and talk to them about the events that happened here on the 22nd of June 1921. Okay, so we're just outside the Vaughan house here, and there's a beautiful plaque erected here only in recent days by the Roscommon IRA Commemoration Committee, and it's to recognise the events that happened here on the 22nd of June 1921. And now I'm just going to talk to Tom Vaughan, whose great-grandmother owned this house here, and she had a number of her family here, her children, number of sons and a daughter that were here in the house. And Tom is just going to tell us about the events on that fateful morning in June 1921, and this 22nd of June.
Yeah, early morning, June the 22nd, 1921. There was three in the house at the time. Martin Ganley, Captain John Vaughan and Ned Shannon. And they were drinking tea in the kitchen whilst the other members of the Vaughan family were asleep in the rooms. They were dozing off, and they were talking first, and then they were disrupted then when the window smashed in, and the Black and Tans had surrounded the homestead. After that, they made a run towards the east side of the house, where Captain John Vaughan just threw a grenade out, but it didn't explode. Ned Shannon and himself and Captain John Vaughan, they made a run for the back field, and Martin Ganley remained in the house where he was surrounded by the Black and Tans. Ned Shannon was the first to be shot 50 metres to the rear of the house, while Captain John Vaughan kept running. But he was shot dead about 150 metres from the house before he could cross the ditch, and if he had crossed the ditch, he might have got away at the time.
Thanks, Tom. Well, that's a very interesting piece of history, and of course we're going to go up now into the fields to see exactly where these terrible events took place, and we're going to head up there now. So we're here now at the side of the house, and we're just looking up along here by the old sheds that were here, looking up along by the yard. Tom, can you just describe exactly where we're heading for now, up towards those fields?
Yes, Captain John Vaughan and Lieutenant Ned Shannon, they made a run through the gateway, straight through the rear of the house and sheds, as you can see here. Ned Shannon was the first to be shot there, roughly 50 metres there from the back of the house. And we'll proceed up to have a look at the exact location where he was shot. This is the location where Lieutenant Ned Shannon was shot and wounded on that early morning. The Black and Tans had really surrounded the house, and there was two groups of them shooting, one from the east side and one from the west side. Captain John Vaughan proceeded to try and get over the ditch here that we see, but he didn't succeed, and he was shot 100 yards from the rear of the house. Yeah, this is the ditch where Captain John Vaughan nearly got over. He was caught in the gunfire as he was climbing over the ditch, and if he had got over and got up to the backfields, he might have got away. And this is the location here now, and the memorial to where he died for Ireland.
Okay, Tom, so now we're back out at the house again, and of course, the events didn't stop with just the killings above in the field. The Black and Tans and the RAC were here at the house, and Tom, you might just tell us what happened here at the house after that.
Yeah, whilst the shootings were taking place, the other Black and Tans group that were here just rounded up all the members of the Vaughan household. They tried to shoot Martin Ganley but missed. They beat up Mrs. Vaughan and also tried to set fire to the thatched roof. They proceeded to go up to the rear field and to make sure that Ned Shannon was dead. They fired, I think it was three to four bullets into his body. Meanwhile, Captain John Vaughan was dying slowly at the far end of the field. They arrested Tom Vaughan and also Martin Ganley and brought them into the barracks in the RAC barracks in Castlereagh, along with the bodies of Captain John Vaughan and Ned Shannon.
Yeah, Tom, and we're just going to give you a little shot here of the barracks. This was the RAC barracks in Castlereagh. It's now demolished, but it was where the Garda station is today, and it was taken over, of course, by the Irish government once the truce and when the British forces left Ireland. So, Tom, I suppose it was a very difficult time for your great-grandmother, but also for your for all the members of the family here in the house, because the trauma that had happened, but also the fact that they were loaded up on a lorry along with these people and brought into Castlereagh. So, Tom, do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a cruel way of doing this at the time, where the bodies were put onto sidecars and brought into Castlereagh. They didn't care for any relatives that were present to watch the events unfolding, and they basically looted buildings and did all they could to annoy the relatives at the time.
Right, so we're here now with three generations of the Vaughans. We have Sean Vaughan, whose father Tom was in the house on that day. We've got Tom, his son, and we've got also Tom and Sean, who are Sean grandchildren. So we have the three generations here on this day, and we're remembering the Vaughan household and Shannon's, and of course all the events that happened here. And I'm just going to hand over to Sean Browne now, who knew Pat Vaughan, who was an uncle of Sean's, and also he knew Tom Vaughan, Sean's father. And Sean, will you go over now and talk to Sean Vaughan about a little bit of history that you know, and of course of Pat Vaughan coming from America and all of the things that he done and the great character he was.
Pat Vaughan was a great character, and I was very fortunate to get to know him that time over 30 years ago. And lucky that I was into the video that we were able to record it, because it's going to be shown later on now on this sequence. And we went around to different places and included your place too as well, Sean. God, it doesn't seem like 30 years ago. It was in June 91 at the time.
Right.
And he did a great job on himself and Johnny Costello.
Right.
And I enjoyed it terribly well. And we went down to Forest Park as well, and we spent a bit of time together. And we also had correspondence with him, you know. But you remember him very well as well.
I do, of course. Do. But I do. She was calling down every weekend. Yes. He was.
Yeah, but he was ahead of his time, because I remember him saying that that time it was essential that we have this thing recorded. Because lots of things, the younger generation, even this thing, they don't even knew it happened at the time 100 years ago.
I do not. No. It's too long.
But they were all great men when you think about it. I mean, your uncle that time was only 26, he was only a young lad, you know.
That's right.
We're here at the grave of John Vaughan, and it's great to see such a fitting of a memorial to him here at the St. Joseph Cemetery in Castlereagh. The one thing I remember about it is this, going back over 50 years ago, my granduncle Jimmy Browne remembered to me that he buried Sean on that occasion. Do you remember any stories from Pat that time? Would he talk much about it when he came home?
He would have been, nothing that much now either. No. I had an aunt up in Clare. She knew it all. She was only a young girl going into school here. She was a teacher, and she tells you things about it, you know. She would.
But you ever find that time too, Sean, when you're young, you don't seem to take things in as much, and you're sorry then as you get older you didn't.
I forget about them too, you know, until you read them again and everything.
But these men should never be forgotten, because they weren't great at the time, and we should always remember them as long as we can. That's what they did to give us back our freedom in this country.
Yes. And here is my mother and father. My mother and father, Tom Vaughan, Bridget Vaughan and Tom.
We're here at Clonbannock Church, and I'm just going to talk to Sean Browne here about the bell here that was erected here by the Vaughan brothers, Patrick and Richard of Boston, Massachusetts, and it was in memory of Captain John Vaughan. Sean, can you just tell us a little bit about this?
Well, this was bell was erected by Patrick and Richard in 1947 in commemoration of their brother, Captain John Vaughan, who was shot this Tuesday coming up on the 22nd of June 1921.
And Sean, I'm just going to ask you now to give the bell a little ring there. Of course, the bell isn't used anymore, but I think it's fitting that it should be rang this evening. Sean, just here, your uncle Jimmy Browne had a house, and of course, can you tell us just a little bit about him and his connection with John Vaughan?
Well, the connection here was Jimmy lived here with a woman called Cathy Egan. I think the house was divided up in the middle, and it's actually just at the spot here where you see the grotto. Jimmy came to live with us in Arm in 1956, and he lived there for 10 years until he died on the 24th of April 1966, which was my birthday. I love the man because we sit by the fire and he talked more about John Vaughan and Ed Shannon and all the activity that went on around the Clunches at that time. And he mentioned especially that his house here was a safe house where he could put them up at night time in lieu of the black and tans coming around the place or anything like that.
I'm here with Tom Ganley, and Tom is a son of Martin Ganley, who was very, very involved in the South Roscommon Brigade in West Roscommon. And Tom is from Clonmall, and just reading some of the paperwork here, and it says here September the 14th, 1920, that Pat Glynn, the OC of the 1st Battalion South Roscommon Brigade, was killed in an ambush at the RAC barracks in Ballina. Martin Ganley took over the task of reorganising the volunteers after the tragedy in Ballina. His home became the headquarters, and many of the officers stayed there from time to time. Martin belonged to the active service unit called the Flying Column from 1919 until his capture on the 22nd of June 1921, where he was on the run. The unit to which he belonged was given the name because they could move quickly from place to place to aid any trouble and then be off again. Tom, it's great to talk to you here, Tom, about this. And Tom, I know that your father was very, very involved with the IRA, Tom. Tom, can you just tell me there, what year were you born in, Tom?
I was born in 1925.
And Tom, your father, Martin Ganley, was in Cloonsuck with John Vaughan and Ned Shannon. Did he ever speak about that?
He never spoke to me about it, but the information I have about it was that there was 4 men in the house in Cloonsuck, John Vaughan's house. John Vaughan's house was considered one of these safe houses. There was a number of safe houses. McDermott's outside Rockland there, that was a safe house. And for spite, they decided to burn the house down. So it would have been an old house, an old thatched house. It was near the road at the time. It wasn't that far in, because in the summertime, in the hot summers, the foundations used to show up. The grass used to burn over the track of the old house. And I could see that every summer where the old house was. And I could visualize what it was all like. It was just an old house, an old thatched house, with a big kitchen and living room in it. And then there'd be 2 bedrooms on one side of the house, and there'd be a bigger bedroom then on the other side. That was the house, you know. But the tenants come back and burned it down, and at that time there was a cow barn next to the house, and that cow barn is still there. It had a pitched roof on it at the time when I was young, and there was a hole in the roof at one end of it, and I often wonder what the hole in the roof was for. But I found out at a later date that it was, of course, they had to, when the tenants put them out of the house, they had to go and live in the barn, and they would have had to light a fire, and would have some kind of a chimney stack, and there's a pipe going out through the roof to take the smoke away. So they had to live in the house. They live at the cow barn as best they could, and until the new house was built. I thought that was it in 1921, but it wasn't really. I see by correspondence on that thing that was 1925 or something.
Sean, we're just sitting here in the bar of Hell's Kitchen, and Sean, I just want to say a very big thanks to you, but also to Shane for all the help that you've given me in creating some of these videos on the War of Independence. And of course, I suppose maybe I got some of the ideas from you yourself, because I know you're a great historian and you have great photographs, and you have great videos of the town of Castlereagh and the surrounding area. And but I want to say a big thanks to you, but also to Shane, because Shane has done great work for me, helping me to edit some of the videos. And of course, I'm an amateur, and I know when I see the work that you've done and that Shane has done, you're definitely professional. So the bar here, as you said, is a great place for the history of the town. And of course, you mentioned Pat Vaughan there, and I think you have a photograph here of him with yourself, which was taken in, I think, Lockheed, I think it was, Sean. But it's great that you recorded Pat Vaughan over 30 years ago, and it's a huge piece of history when the connection is there with the woodlands of Lough Linn. And the fact that he mentioned Stephen McDermott playing football with him is a huge thing. Sean, it certainly is great, Sean, and thanks for all of that.
Oh, you're very welcome. But it's great to be back here in Hell's Kitchen, because it brings back great memories. It was called the Castle Inn at the time, and when Paschal was called in here, he used to meet the different people around the place, and he was a great man. He was a great people's person, you know. And we were so lucky to have him, because that was only a matter of about 70 years before this thing happened in 1991. And I treasure that video, and I've shared it with more people because it was his wishes to do so. And it's also kept with Roscommon County Council as part of their archives for people to see in generations to come. And I hope they never forget them, because they were great men. I mean, they sacrificed their life for the freedom that we can have today here in this country.
Yeah, Sean, that's right. It is great to have that archive. And Sean, now we're going to go over to watch that video of yourself and Pat Vaughan, and also Johnny Costello is in the video commentating, and it certainly is great. So we're going to go over now and have a look at the video. And once again, thanks to yourself and to Shane.
We're at the scene here in Clonbannock, the actual scene of the house where the three people, the two people were murdered, and Martin Ganley was unfortunately not murdered. And we have Pat Vaughan here now to explain the details of that terrible morning.
Well, they came here about 2 o'clock in the morning, my brother and Shannon and Ganley. They never stayed in the house in the early late night or early morning, because that was the time the police usually came and got them. So, but they came here about 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in that morning, and had gone into the house there, and Shannon went out to the well and got a pail of water to make tea. And Ganley was sitting at a window, was right there, beside, you can imagine where the kitchen window was. And the first sign they had of any trouble was the glass was broken on top of Ganley. That fired on the house already. So my brother ran to the door and threw a hand grenade out on the street here, and it exploded, of course, and King was slightly wounded. So the police evidently retreated. There was a wall over there and a hedge, and my brother ran over there. He ran out of the house over and opened that gate way over there. And it must have taken a minute or some seconds to open that gate. And I often was surprised that he wasn't killed right there. But he got away and got up in the field quite a distance from here, as you'll probably see a little later. And Shannon followed him. And evidently they got Shannon before they got my brother.
Okay, now Pat will explain to you about this historic gate that's here now.
This is the gate he had to open. He had to slide this back and open it. Now that must have taken maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And he ran up the field, and of course they followed him. Shannon followed him, and they got Shannon before they got my brother. Those fellows haven't seen him for so long. Yeah. My brother opened that gate below there and came through it, and Shannon followed him evidently a minute or so later. And they came up this way and got into that drain over there, and went, I'd say maybe, 200 yards, 300 yards. They got into this drain, which gave them some protection, and ran, as you can see, up to where my brother got to where he was killed. This is the exact spot where Ned Shannon was killed. This is where my mother and the neighbours found his body a little later that morning. This is the drain. It continues right up to where my brother was killed. And he dropped different things, well, a couple of things out of his pocket while he was running. And that one thing was his whistle. And I found it the following day, whistle and chain, which I have up to this day. I have it on me now. And that's about, I suppose, covers it up to here. About 100 to 150 yards, I'd say, from the house. And As you can see, the drain is still there, and it's dried up now, pretty well dried up. But at that time, it was clean, and it gave them quite a bit of protection as they went along. And as you try to get over that little wall, there was a little wall there on a kind of an old stile that they have for getting up into the fields. The other fields, that's where they got him, going over the stile. If he had gotten over that stile, undoubtedly he'd have got away. This is the spot now where John was killed. Right, there's a little hillock here, and he's killed in the drain. And they took him out of the drain and put him up here. And his brother Tom identified him. And Tom told me later that they shot him several times on the ground. Even though he was dead, they still shot him.
What age pass were they at that?
John was 28 and Shannon was 26. Yeah.
Both were in good health.
Oh yes, both of them strong, healthy men.
And what age did Martin Ganley be older, would he?
Ganley was in his middle 30s.
Yeah. Now, at this point in time, we have also here Tom Vaughan's son, who was also very much involved at that time, and Tom, indeed, he went through awful torture as well. So Sean is here, who owns this land at the moment, a nephew of Pat's. So Pat will tell you about the reason why we're doing this.
Well, to my mind, there wasn't very much of a record kept of any of the action around Loughlin, Paschal, Clonsuck or Castlereagh. And I thought it'd be nice to leave this to the younger people to see and appreciate, I hope, in later years.
Very nice.
We kicked football in this field the Sunday before Steve McDermott was killed in Loughlin. Bergen was up in Clonbonnet. He was suffering from TB at the time, very sick, and Nusscall was taking care of him. And Steve McDermott came down here with my brother John. And McDermott was a great footballer, so we took out an old football and kicked around the field here. He took off his gun and left it down in that old gap over there. And then we went over to Johnny Keeneye's gravel pit, and he was showing us how to take the pin out of a hand grenade and hold it, and it wouldn't go off. That's a true fact as true as I'm here.
If you let it go, it'll go off.
If you took your hand off the clip, it'll go off. We'll be all blown to hell.
How many seconds had you at that time?
Huh?
How many seconds had you before it was fused?
I don't know, 2 or 3 I think, or not 5 anyway. Yeah. Oh yeah. We used to think nothing of it.
Well, this is the field you played the football in?
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Yeah. This was planted with potatoes that particular year. And the Sunday night before, myself and my brother Dick was given a rifle and the bag of stuff to hide. They didn't need it then, so we put it in the potato field here in the furrows. And it was there when the police came back the following day to take away my brother's body. And anyway, when I came out from town that morning, I took the bag and the rifle and hid it over in Johnny Keeneye's land in the crumpled bushes way over the hill there. And as soon as the police got here, 2 of them went right up there and found that bag and rifle. And how they knew where it was hid, I will never know. I'll die. I never know what happened, how they found it. The only people that knew it was there was myself and Dick. So there was somebody local watching. That's all I can say. Yeah. This is the gate my brother had to open to get through here. And it must have taken 30, 40 seconds or a minute to open that and get going up there. Well, there was at least 15 policemen in this area right here. This is the doorway they came out. And as you can see, it's a pretty old door. It might be the same one and it might be replaced, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, we have a chair here, Sean, that he sat on when he was in the council, John.
This was the seat?
This is the chair that John sat on when he was a member of the Roscommon County Council during the troubled years of 1920 and 21. This chair was presented to the Vaughan's family here by the Roscommon County Council in the early 20s.
Come on, say.
This is the grave of Captain John Vaughan, and this is a memorial tombstone that was erected for him after the truce was signed, and was dedicated here by the late Gerald O'Connor and members of the old IRA. Reminded myself of the fact that Jimmy Browne from Clonbonagh dug the grave here on that fatal day, and I went into Castlereagh and got a couple of bottles of stout for him. He was working hard here. Very good. Yeah.
It's very important to remember them, and you'll find after this goes out on Facebook, wherever the case may be, that many a person will call to pay tribute to Sean Browne, who gave his life for Ireland on the 21st of June 1921, 100 years ago.